Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. So in this video I'm gonna show you how you can build a car show kind of thing where you have this 3D model of a car and then you can place different points of interest basically on this page. For example, on this tire right now you can see as I hover my mouse over this point we see more information about the tire. And you can apply the same idea to anything else, any 3D model. And just what I'm showing here is an example for you to get started, and you can take the idea to the next level as much as you want. During the process I'll show you how you can optimize or pre-process your 3D models in Blender 3D before you import them in three.js, and we're gonna learn a few things about Blender 3D as well. So without further ado, let's get started. Alrighty, the first step is to get a 3D model, and you can definitely create your own 3D model using any software like Blender, Cinema 4D, or any other 3D software, but that's outside the scope of this video, and I'm just gonna get a simple model online. So I'm gonna use free3d.com for now, and I'm going to search for car here. So if I search for that, there are many options, and some of them are free. So this is the model that I picked. So once I click on this, it gives me an option to download it. If you scroll down, you see like you get Blender, OBJ, and FBX file. So that's good. Let's download it, and once you download it, you will actually have 3 different files inside the download folder. So here we go. This is my download blend, FBX, and OBJ as they mentioned here. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna open Blender, and if you don't have it, just go to Google, search Blender 3D, and you can install it. It's free and no payment, nothing needed. It's just easy to install whether you're on Mac or PC, and nothing is special about that. So when you open Blender, it's gonna present you with this like cube in the middle. Then there is this camera over here, and there is this light here, and we're gonna get rid of all of that. If you look at the scene collection over here, just gonna select this collection and then hit the X key, so I get to do the same for all of these. So I will select it and hit the X key on my keyboard. Now we're going to import the model that we just downloaded. So you can, since as we saw, we had FBX, OBJ, and also the blend file. I prefer to use the FBX file, so I'm gonna open the FBX file over here, and it was in my downloads, and over here I have it. Import FBX. Okay, so you see now we have our model here. We're gonna do a couple of quick optimizations here, just a little bit of pre-processing, I would say, to make it ready for our three.js scene. And the main reason is because you see this like FBX file is like 12 megabyte, and like OBJ is even higher, larger, so 30 megabyte. We don't want to bring these into three.js scene because that's gonna be very bad performance wise. So what I'm gonna do, first of all, I'm just gonna right click, well, select this Mercedes. You see here it is selected. Right click on it, and I'm gonna set the origin to center of mass. So now I have the origin over there. Next thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go to this panel over here, and in object properties I'm gonna move this to the position 0, 0, and again 0. So I just type 0 for all of these locations, and then as you saw, it just moved the center, which we set it to the center mass. Now it's at 0, 0, 0, and that's what I want because that helps me when I import it in three.js into my scene. So the next step is that, as you can see, we have this grid over here. You can see this is really small, so we want to scale it up a little bit, and to do that I'm just gonna select it and then hold the S key and then drag my mouse, not drag, move my mouse to scale it up and leave it here. I suggest you use a mouse, real mouse, not trackpad, for working with Blender because it gets a little bit tricky. So I'm on my Mac obviously here, and I'm using the Magic Mouse. So if I scroll, kind of like the middle scroller thing in a normal mouse, it would just do this. So I have to hold shift and do that. You can see it goes up and down. If I do control and then do the scroller, the little middle scroll thing, it's gonna zoom in and out. Anyways, so 2 fingers does this. You could do with trackpad, shift and 2 fingers will do this, and command and 2 fingers will zoom in and out like this. So we have this here, and this is good. Right now we can see it's big enough, large enough. So what I'm gonna do, this is a Blender thing, so we need to kind of scale to fix some scaling. If you click on this little icon over here, there might be also a shortcut for it, but you'll see now that the scale is 1.65, 1.65. Normally you would want to set it back to 1, and this might not be a problem here, but if you're doing some crazy stuff with Blender and then you do baking your scene and exporting stuff, that might be problematic here. So to do that, I'm just gonna go to object while this is selected, object, then I'm gonna apply and then scale here. As you can see, it's back down to 1. So that's a good practice for you guys also whenever you're working with Blender. The next thing I'm gonna do, if you click while you're in this view, your mouse cursor is here, if you click the Z key, Z here, you'll see 4 options. Right now we are in this solid view. I'm gonna go to wireframe and show you something. If you zoom in, you'll see there is actually more than 332,000, almost 333,000 vertices here. We have 361,000 faces here as well. So this is too much detail. If you go back, click Z and go back to solid view, it's good, it looks really nice and all that, but there might be it might still be a little large, the file size when we export it, because we have so many vertices and faces. We can go back to wireframe mode, and then if you click on this little icon here, modifier properties, you can actually apply a modification to this to reduce the number of vertices here, and that modifier is called decimate. So if you click on it over here, you can play with this ratio. So I'm just gonna click and type 0.5 here, see what happens here. So you see some of the vertices went away, and now we're down to 237,000 and 180,000 faces here. So this is gonna be better because the file size is going to be reduced, and that's going to help with the performance of the website. So the next thing I'm going to do real quick here is go back to my solid view to see, you see like there is a little bit of lower quality, but eventually you have to make a decision if this is gonna be good for you or not. Right now it's just like a tutorial that I'm showing you how to do things, so I'm gonna stay with this. It's good. And then the last thing I'm gonna do is to export it. So I'm gonna go to file, export, and I need the GLTF version here. I'm gonna go select my folder over here. I'm gonna call it Mercedes and .glb. What we need to do is to make sure we limit this to the selected object in case you have more objects over here. For the transfer, make sure to keep the Y up because Blender Y is towards down, and we want to make sure that three.js, when we import it in three.js, the Y is kind of reversed because Y up is positive in three.js. And then over here we want to apply modifier because we did modify here, so make sure to check that one. And then we don't want to export the materials, we just want the like geometry over here, the actual car. And then compression, we are going to actually select it, and this is actually something that we're gonna come back when we're adding this to our scene, and we'll talk about that in a bit. And there are no animations in this 3D model, so I'm gonna uncheck all that. So again, real quick, selected objects, Y up, apply modifiers and compression here. We have a GLB format here. We've selected our folder and we're gonna export it. And it should be done depending on like how fast your computer is. But if we go back, now we have this GLB file over here, which is less than 1 MB, so way smaller than what we originally had. Now we did sacrifice a little bit of quality for this, but that is fine. Again, this is just for purpose of this tutorial. You could have kept a larger number of vertices, but still definitely I believe this number would be like the final GAB file would be much smaller than any of these other FBX or OBJ file. Okay, now we have the exported model ready. Next step, we're gonna go ahead and bring it into our three.js scene. Okay, so we are in VS Code right now. I have a basic setup for my three.js. This is the Webpack boilerplate that I've been using, and my three.js stuff are under app canvas 3.js, this index.js file. That's where I'm working. And by the way, I will share the link to the repo with the final code in the description box below this video, so you can get that as well. What I have here is just a basic scene. I have my camera, just a random position for now, and then I have my renderer, I have my orbit controls here, and then I've also added grid helper and axis helper that we can use to facilitate what we are trying to do. And then I have my update function here, render.render, or my resize function, and my destroy function. Again, if you don't know what these are, go check out my previous videos in the channel. I will also put some links on the top right corner during this video for the different things that we will talk about. What I have also added is this models folder inside the static folder. I have models, and that's where I've added the GLB file that we just basically outputted from Blender, so I have it there. Just keep that in mind. I have already npm install and then npm start over here. This is my localhost 3000, the three.js endpoint. So this is my grid helper, my access helper, and just a basic scene with the orbit control, so I can drag around. So that's what we have right now. Now, as I said, I have the GLB file here. What I'm gonna do, first thing we're gonna do is to use a GLTFLoader, and to do that, I'm gonna define a this function setup scene, and then just define it over here right under my constructor, and then up here I'm going to import GLTFLoader. And in one of my previous videos, maybe a couple weeks ago, I explained this. Go check that out and check that video out. And this is what we're gonna use to import our GLB file. Inside this setup scene over here, I'm going to define my new GLTFLoader, assign it to this my car loader. Here will have the value, and then the next thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna load my models Mercedes.glb, and this is how we do it. Again, check out the previous video. I'll put a link up here as well for you guys to go check that video out. So now we have this here. I'm gonna save the file, and let's go and check out our three.js endpoint here, localhost 3000. Now I'm going to get this error here that no DracoLoader instance provided. Now what the hell is this? So if you remember, when I was exporting my model over here in GLB model, I had this compression checkbox selected, and that basically compressed my model, 3D model. And to be able to import the compressed model in three.js, we need to use DracoLoader. And here in the three.js documentation, we have that everything explained clearly. And all these web pages that I will show during this video, also I'll put the links to them in the description box below, so don't worry about that. We're just gonna do exactly what they have here. We're gonna instantiate a loader, and then we're gonna specify the path to a folder containing these libraries. We get to that in a second. So what I'm gonna do, I need to import DracoLoader first over here. So that also is going to be inside the examples JSM loaders, DracoLoader folder, the JS file. And then here, as I said, we're gonna instantiate a loader. So I'm gonna call it DracoLoader here. And then we need to specify path to a folder containing these two libraries. Now, what are these two libraries? If you see here, the path that they have here is in regards to the GitHub repo for three.js, and that's here. So we have Mr. Dupe 3.js, and then examples JS library, libs folder under Draco folder. The two files that we need is this Draco decoder wasp, and then the wrapper.js over here. So this first one here, if you just click on it, you can download it. And the other one, the JS wrapper over here, you can either create a similar file with the same name, and then copy the content over to that file in the VS Code, which I will show you in a second, or just do whatever you want. Just you need to have this file basically downloaded. Now I have created this Draco folder here under static. Again, this is my webpack structure. So I have everything like my images, fonts, models, everything under static folder. and I have copied the wasm file and also the wrapper.js file over here. So you can see that I just basically created this DracoWasm wrapper.js file and then copied the content from over here and then saved it. And this one I just downloaded and put it here. Now you see here for my decoder path I have /Draco/ that's exactly what I have here. And again, remember, everything will be compiled into the public folder as you can see here, so I will not need to start from static. I can just do Draco as I did for model here. It was just models and then Mercedes. So this is my boilerplate, like Webpack boilerplate for you guys. However you do it, make sure to have the right path here. And then lastly, what we need to do is to set the DracoLoader for our GLTFLoader, and then that's gonna be the DracoLoader that we defined up here. So I'm gonna save it again here. Let's go check it out. Localhost 3000, three.js over here. And there it is. We have the car here, but it's dark, and that's because we don't have any lights here. So the next step is gonna be adding lights. I'm gonna just define a function here in my constructor. Basically just refer to this function, and then I'll call the function here and then define it down here right under setup scene. I have add lights, just an ambient light with like white color and one intensity. I'm just positioning it at this position, XYZ. Play with it, do whatever you want with the color, intensity, and all that. Don't forget to add the light to the scene. So with that added, now we're gonna take another look and make sure things look good. So now, as you can see, I have my car and I've added lights so we can see things over here. Alright, the next thing I'm gonna do is to add a couple of geometries, and the reason I do that, I'm going to add the like little sphere thingy over here, and that's what we can hover over, and then it's gonna pop up a text up here with details of like what this tire is. And to get the location of that new sphere, we can actually go back either to Blender over here, looking at this grid here. You can see like 1, 2, 3, and 4, and some. This is x-axis and this green is z-axis. You can see like I have 4 in the x-axis, and the z-axis is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, about 8. Don't forget that that tire is slightly under like the x and y plane, x and z plane here, so the y is a little bit negative actually. Or you could have like done the same thing over here. That's why I added the grid here, so you can see like, for example, there's like 4 on the x-axis, and then I have like 8-ish over here on the z-axis, and the y-axis is a little bit negative. So what I've done here inside my setup screen, I have added a sphere geometry, and then I have positioned it at like x 4.2, and then negative 0.5 for y, and then z of 8. And that's exactly what we just saw here. X of about 4 and something, z of 8, and y of like a little bit negative, so 0.5. And then I've obviously played with the radius and like mainly the radius of the sphere geometry, and just the blue color for this. So don't forget to add it to the scene. So this scene dot add the sphere, and then here I've added it to the scene. Let's go back and take a look. All right, it's right there, so we can see it right there. One thing that we can add also is the ring over here, and to do that I can actually add a ring geometry. Oops, add a ring geometry here, which is basically a torus geometry. Again, I've played with these numbers. The position is gonna be exactly the same. I've given it a little bit higher radius than my sphere so that it doesn't go inside my sphere, so it's like outside the sphere. And then this is like the thickness of the ring. I don't want it to be too thick because that didn't look good. So again, I played with these numbers. You can do the same. And then you can see that I combined the sphere and ring and added them as just in one line to the scene. So I can save it again here now and then check it out over here. All right, we have the ring also here, just a little bit bigger radius than the sphere and the same center. We can like rotate it so that it's kind of like facing this way to where the camera starts. So I'm gonna do that. I have this rotation of a 45-degree around the y-axis, which is this axis, the green axis, and you can see now that I have it rotated a little bit. So that's good in terms of the position of this and what we want to hover over to show our like the detail about this tire. And this is basically what you could do for any other like parts of the car, and just like doing the same, going through the same process, and like placing different whatever pointer circles items that you want to have next to like different parts and hover over them to show the details. So that's one thing. Then I'm gonna remove the grid helper and the axis helper here. The other thing that you may notice is that this car, this is like a big 3D model, and it kind of might load slower than these guys over here. So it kind of doesn't make sense if you have these here first and then the car shows up. So we're gonna fix that. We're gonna add loading manager, again something that three.js provides to us. It will allow us to wait for this 3D model to load, and then we will add the rest these other geometries to the scene. Let's do that right now. I'm gonna define my manager and my loading manager here, and then there is also a callback here. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna remove everything, these sphere and ring geometries, and put them inside that loading manager. So first I need to add the manager to my GLTFLoader to make sure that is using the manager, because that's why we added. Without adding it to this GLTFLoader, we won't wait for the loading to finish. And if you hover over, as you can see here, that's what we can add, which is exactly what we have, the loading manager here. So now I'm gonna copy everything inside this loading manager, and we can also add a little bit of timeout, like 1 second, so that it takes a little bit after the car is loaded for the rest of the scene to appear. So again, I did a set timeout of 1 second and put all the sphere and ring geometry in that function callback. So right here, yeah, so it took a second for the thing appear, and that's a good thing because also it kind of grabs the attention of the visitor so that they know, oh, there's something there, maybe I should like hover over it or do something about it. Maybe at this point we can change the camera position, also the starting position, because every time I have to kind of like rotate to get to a good position to see the the sphere and that ring. So this is better. You can play with these numbers. And the next thing we are gonna do is to take care of the hover effect, and this is raycasting in three.js. I have a very comprehensive video on that. Again, I'll put a link on the top right corner of this video. You can go check that out. But basically, we're gonna add a raycaster here and our mouse 3 vector 2 mouse here. I'm going a little bit faster because I have a video and I've explained everything there. Then down here in mouse move section over here, I'm going to add my mouse X and Y. Again, this calculation, go check that video. And then I have my Raycaster set from camera. I have my mouse and camera over here, and then the objects that I want to detect mouse hover or mouse basically intersection with are the sphere and the ring that we added. And then finally, if I have some intersection, that means I'm hovering over that those objects, I want to console.log hover. And if I save it right now, once we go over here, we should see something happening. So now there is an error here. I will get to it in a sec, but if I hover over, now you can see that I'm hovering, and you can see hover over here. The reason we saw that error was that because I was moving my mouse before these like the sphere and the ring were added to the scene, and if you don't have the sphere and the ring added, then this is gonna throw an error because the object is basically empty. To fix that, we're gonna define a new like boolean value here, model loaded, set it as false at the beginning in the constructor. Once the whole model is loaded, the loading manager is done here, we can set it to true, and then once that is set to true, we will, if that is set to true, if that's true, then we look for the intersection here, raycasting. So I put the whole function that we had inside the if this model loaded boolean check. So now before that thing is checked, if I move my mouse, you see I didn't get any of that error. Now the last step is to show that little text up here. I have a three.js pog file here. That's the HTML markup for this page. I've added this car tire, this like a little explanation here, a detail about the tire. Right now it's set to display none. So what we want to do is to change the display to block once we hover over, and then change it back to none when we are hovering out, leaving the sphere. That's JavaScript. So basically first thing I'm gonna do inside my constructor here is to target that element right here, that car tire over here, and then inside my if condition here, if we have intersection, that means if I am hovering over, I'm going to set the display of the tire to block, and then if we are not hovering over, I'm gonna set it back to none. So let's save it. And then again, this is JavaScript and like CSS, HTML stuff, just for showing you how this works. I can like hover over, and as you can see, that text open like pops up there. That's where I have placed it. It's like an absolute with left and top positions of 200 pixels. So again, you can do the same thing for all the other parts of the car. You can add a texture, image texture around to kind of give it a feel of a car dealership. And if you want to know how to add image textures using three.js, then again, go check back my videos. I have videos on that as well. And then lastly, what I want to do is just kind of add a little bit of animation to this guy, this ring over here, totally like not necessary, just like adding stuff that we've learned previously. What I'm gonna do is in my update function, I'm going to add some rotation X and Y here. And again, we need to make sure that we check the rotation after the model is loaded, because if the model is not loaded, if this is false, then the ring, there is no ring there. The ring, if you again remember, it's added after the model is loaded, the 3D car is loaded. So we're just adding a little bit of rotation for this over here. You'll see in a second. And there you go. So there is like a little bit of rotation, just like a more visual kind of effects to grab the attention of visitor. Again, you can like do the same thing for other parts of the car. In this car, even you can go inside, just add like a little bit of light in here, and then you can do the same thing with the inside parts as well. Alrighty, that's about it. If you liked the video, please make sure to hit the like button below, and if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe and turn the notification bell on. If you have any suggestions for topics for the next videos, also make sure to drop a comment in the comment box below. Thanks a lot, everyone, and I'll see you guys soon again.